Red Bull has had a bad race for the first time in 2 years, with Verstappen and Perez finishing P5 and P8 respectively. However, there's a very interesting reason as to why that happened. And is it the real reason? Well, we'll see, but it took Singapore's high degradation track to finally end Red Bull's dominance. So, could the other teams build on this, or will we see another flurry of Red Bull victories until the end of the season? The FIA issued a recent technical directive that took effect starting with the Singapore race this weekend, and the directive's purpose was to eliminate the possibility of teams exploiting flexible aerodynamic bodywork, amid concerns that some may have been pushing the boundaries of the regulations. Red Bull experienced an uncharacteristic struggle with pace throughout the weekend, culminating in a disastrous race where both Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez were far from the podium, making the worst weekend this season for the reigning world champions. Verstappen said he could have joined the podium battle, but everything went against them. The Red Bull drivers' progress from 11th to 5th was hindered by the deployment of a full safety car following Logan Sargent's crash, and this incident granted a convenient pit stop opportunity to those on medium tyres. However, Verstappen's unconventional strategy of starting on the hard tyres meant he couldn't have taken advantage of this, as there wasn't enough time left in the race to switch to mediums. Verstappen also found the virtual safety car triggered later when Esteban Ocon stopped on the track to be unhelpful, and unlike the Mercedes drivers, he didn't have an extra set of fresh mediums. Despite these challenges, Verstappen's tyre advantage on the medium compound in the final laps enabled him to make impressive progress through the field, ultimately securing a 5th place finish. And this was after George Russell's last lap collision with the wall ended his race. Now, the reigning F1 world champion believes that without these safety car incidents, he could have achieved an even higher position, as he finished just 0.262 seconds behind Charles Leclerc at the finish line and was 21.4 seconds behind the winner, Carlos Sainz. So why was Red Bull bad? Could the new technical regulations affect them the most? Over the weekend, a fresh technical directive was enforced, reinforcing the already existing one in TD39, and the belief is that certain teams were circumventing the flexible floor regulations. Now, they aim to intensify these measures, particularly targeting the flexibility of the wings, and recent debates suggest confidence in not needing major changes. While this might impact performance to some extent, the more pressing concern for Red Bull this weekend in general was achieving the right balance. Any modifications to the car's floor or wings can disrupt the season-long balance, and observing how much both Perez and Verstappen struggled with rear balance raises questions about the directive's influence. It's premature to predict if Red Bull will face significant setbacks, and a complete performance drop seems unlikely, especially since the next race in Suzuka is a totally different story. But if there was a weekend where Red Bull could have been challenged, it was this one, and it happened. So why does this track push the RB19 into such a challenging setup range? There are some indicators, as on most tracks, that this car can maintain a lower rear ride height than its competitors without encountering bouncing issues, and this is likely due to its advanced high-roofed underfloor and its extensive rear suspension travel. However, at certain tracks, a different limitation comes into play, which is that of not scraping the legality plank, which sets the minimum allowable ride height. Other cars unable to run as low as the Red Bull without triggering bouncing don't need to worry about grinding down the plank to the point of making the car illegally low. Red Bull, on the other hand, can, and therefore at circuits like Spa and Singapore, this becomes a significant concern. To comply with regulations, Red Bull has had to elevate the car much more than usual here, and in contrast to many of its rivals, their aerodynamics haven't been fine-tuned for such a ride height. At Spa, the issue arises from the combination of Eau Rouge's high speed and the vertical load during compression. This is why Verstappen and Perez consistently backed off before the compression, while others took it flat out. This also explains Verstappen's recurring instruction from his engineer GP to use his head as he rounded La Source while in Spa. Red Bull didn't sacrifice the downforce that empowers the car's exceptional performance, and instead of adjusting the ride height beyond its natural range, they opted to have the drivers manage the issue at the specific section of the track where it was evident by easing off. This is why the drivers in the fastest cars weren't the only ones not taking Eau Rouge flat out. However, with the uneven surface of Singapore, such a workaround wasn't feasible. Alfa Romeo's Valtteri Bottas sheds further light on this. When asked about their poor qualifying performance, he said, I shouldn't go too much into details, but we basically saw from yesterday that with the setup, ride heights and stiffness we had, we would probably be illegal after the race. So we had to make compromises that cost us downforce. In essence, Alpha raised the rear ride height just as Red Bull had already done. Adding to Red Bull's challenges was the RB19's distinctive feature, its relatively soft extended rear suspension travel. Now this aspect plays a vital role in enabling the underfloor aerodynamics to function efficiently, delivering consistent and substantial downforce across a range of speeds and roll angles. This makes it less prone to sudden spikes in downforce compared to other cars. Speculation and rumours circulated before the weekend that Red Bull could be among the teams affected by the new technical directive. However, the team promptly dismissed these claims before any on-track action had commenced, with Horner insisting the technical directive had nothing to do with Red Bull's woes. The car we have here for qualifying is essentially the identical car that we had 2 weeks ago in Monza and a week before that in Zandvoort. Nothing has changed on the car. We tried a new aero part on Friday and we reverted to that component, so it's a tried and tested setup that we have. It just hasn't responded on this circuit, on this asphalt, trying to get the tyres to get into the window. It's been very hard for both drivers. Well, Red Bull lost for the first time in 2023, but really the losing came on Friday and Saturday, and from there they were locked into a far from ideal balance, the full extent of which may not be realised until days after this weekend's race. But it was a very good sight to see another team get the victory. Even Ted Kravitz was convinced that it couldn't have been the technical directive that affected Red Bull so much. Yesterday we saw the newer of the two Red Bull floors with the new edges, so they don't have a new floor here this weekend, but they do have some new floor edges, he explained during qualifying. So it's those that we believe were taken off from Friday, those new bits, and they went back to the other one that they finished at Monza with. They know that removing the floor edges was the right way to go, so it can't be them. So there are a lot of people thinking, is it this technical directive on flexible floors? And we don't think it's that either, because the technical directive about flexible floors clarifies what's acceptable on the lower surface of the floor. The problems that Red Bull are having, slowing down, not getting your tyres in the right window, braking, don't seem to be related to that. Well, one thing is the possibility of a snowball effect when a relatively small setup issue becomes bigger and bigger because it's getting harder to put energy into the tyre because the RB19 isn't known for good tyre warm-up. And with them not being able to brake as hard, there's less tyre temperature and everything falls apart. It's difficult to think that a team that has won every single race so far is untouchable, and it's also quite easy to assume that technical directions are involved here. Red Bull knew this would be a difficult track for them, and they ended up making it much more difficult for themselves with the wrong setup. The reason they made the final setup is because they always want to make the car better than it was. It's backfired now, but I like that they do not try to settle for less. This was a race to forget for them, and to be honest, I don't expect a lot more from Red Bull in Suzuka. It was definitely a sight for sore eyes to see another winner rather than Verstappen or Perez, and we're looking forward to the Japanese Grand Prix. This being the first race at which the revised tech directives regarding flexing parts are being applied, invariably there were questions about whether this had neutered a previous Red Bull cleverness, because if we get to Suzuka next week and the RB19 is still struggling, that might be a theory worth pursuing. But it will be very hard for such a thing to happen. Thanks for watching this video, and we hope you enjoyed this bit more of a technical analysis of what went wrong with the RB19 and why their streak ended at Marina Bay. Make sure to like, subscribe and leave a comment down below. And do you think it's possible that Red Bull will not win in Japan as well? See you next time.